Welcome to Top Gear, the show that does for cars what Cameron Diaz did for hair gel.
And this is the new Aston Martin DB7 Vantage, the car that James Bond should be driving in his latest film, The World Is Not Enough, but he isn't.
Instead, he's driving a BMW again. I mean, that's like kicking out Pussy Galore and going to bed with Dr. Blofeld's Moggy.
Precisely, which is why in a few moments I will be telling you exactly how good this gadget is.
I'll be poking around the factory, minding my P's, M's and Q's.
Meanwhile, Vicky drives the new Boxster S, more power, more fun, more money, and hooked on speed. Why your speedometer could be telling you lies. I think it's a national scandal that Bond has been strong-armed into driving a German car, especially since this new and very British Aston Martin DB7 Vantage is so awesomely good. So, specially for you, Mr. Brosnan, we're going to show you what you're missing.
Let me run some numbers past you. 12 cylinders, 6 litres, 6 speeds, 48 valves, 420 brake horsepower, red line 7,185 miles an hour. This is a car that could annex the Sudetenland, invade Poland and go straight on through to Berlin in an afternoon. 1 gear and 4.9 seconds and we're doing 60. Another 6 seconds and you're doing 100. This car is so refined, docile and utterly tractable, Posh Spice could drive it.
Sensibly, Aston haven't mucked about with the DB7's full-on styling. There's some discreet flaring of the arches to accommodate tyres wide enough to roll a cricket pitch, plus a more aggressive front nostril, but that's about it. Which proves that Ford, Aston's owner, is doing a good job looking after this most glorious piece of motoring heritage. Uncle Henry has built a damn fine supercar.
He may have been scavenging in the corporate parts bin. This door handle here is Mazda, this mirror switch Fiesta, that's Mondeo, that's Granada. But the cabin still has an Aston ambience. There's a lovely big red starter button here. We like that. Chrome bezeled gauges, plus lots of recycled cows and trees. Not too sure about the suede headlining. And it's a very comfortable, intimate place to be. The steering is just very slightly uninvolving, especially in the straight ahead position. The gear lever throws are a bit long and ponderous. There's a little bit of body lean on corners. But that said, you can forgive this Aston almost anything because of that epic grunt.
But you really need to drive everywhere in bare feet because an extra scintilla of pressure on that big pedal can get you into deep doo-doos. I am so awfully sorry about that. I don't know what I was thinking. My foot must have slipped. Please don't try this at home. I normally don't do this. Honestly, I'm deeply ashamed.
And there's another very compelling reason why everybody's favourite secret agent should buy this car, and that's the price. £92,500. Astonishingly good value. Now, far be it from me to argue that 100 grand is an inconsequential sum. It's not. But in the world of supercars, it amounts to a raindrop plinking in a swimming pool.
You know, I really do adore this Aston. I couldn't give a stuff that the clutch is heavy and there's too much driveline shunt around town. It is the Poodle's Privates and the best Aston yet. They will make 600 every year and they will sell every single one. Like it, I could sleep with it. In fact, there's only one car in the world that's better, and that's the new Ferrari 360. It's a close-run thing, but the Italian wins on chassis balance. You can drift it round corners like an MX-5, whereas the Aston's a bit more of a handful. A bit more brutish. Oh, look, I've done it again. This car is taking over. I really am going to have to stop. I'm awfully sorry. Have a little lie down, pull myself together. Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
So, Mr. Brosnan, this is the car you should be driving, not a BMW. But I happen to know you're in California at the moment and you booked a test drive in one of these, haven't you? Well, look, please buy it. Because of the wonderful irony, think of it. You could drive that wretched BMW during the day and then at night drive home in the grace and favour of a very British Aston Martin. It would make the Germans spit blood.
Plus, you'd be buying the most refined and usable Aston ever. A fitting steed for any secret agent and much more charismatic than a whole traffic jam of BMWs.
So what's the lowdown then, Q?
Now, pay attention, Humble, because this car has Sean Connery's style, Pierce Brosnan's sex appeal, and Roger Moore's acting ability.
Yes, but Quinton, this is a car designed for a middle-aged man. I mean, look at this, for heaven's sake.
It's not in the least bit menopausal. It's an Aston Martin. It's about breeding, pedigree.
It sounds like you're talking about a Labrador.
Humble, it's all about heritage. Get on with it.
Well, I think it's a car that needs putting in its place. I'm going to put my foot down.
What, in those trousers?
One of the only sports that everybody competes on the same level.
It does 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds.
You do get nervous, you do get butterflies.
It has a top speed of 300 miles an hour.
It is very, very serious, this racing.
It will cost you £250,000 for the real thing, but for 200 quid you can race this one straight out of the model shop. This is radio-controlled racing.
It is so close to real racing. It's unbelievable, the effort and the time and the teamwork that goes into it. It's just like a scaled-down version of real racing.
There are around 15 official mini-tracks in Britain, like this one in West London. They regularly host club championships where qualifying rounds sort out the beginners from the superstars who can go on to compete internationally. It's just like the real thing, and that's why they do it.
I think when I was very young, I either wanted to be a racing driver or lead a dance band.
I think everybody's a frustrated racing driver who races radio-controlled cars.
I would like to race real cars, but I don't think I would get any more enjoyment out of it, really, than I do out of this, because you can put more input into this. You can't do the development work on a real car that you would in this.
Surrounding the Lilliputian track, miniature motors have tabletop pit stops and undergo as many tweaks and as much tuning as their full-size counterparts.
It's just like motorsport. We make the same adjustments to the cars, just like on the full size. We can adjust the caster, the Ackerman.
We spend all year matching batteries. We have analysers that test them.
The camber, towing, front and rear.
We have dynos that test the motors. We have durometers to check the tyres.
Different gear ratios.
They are racing cars.
If you get it set right and have a good race, you might win.
You take it to the limit.
But then again, you might not.
They're basically 1/10 scale replicas of the full-size touring cars, and this one's a Volvo S40. There's every car that races in the British Touring Car Championship. You can get a shell to fit your touring car, to fit your model touring car. You can either go and paint it like the full-size car, like this Volvo is, or you can paint it in your own colours.
Well, some shells are reputed to be have better aerodynamics than others. I started off trying to apply this rule, but I couldn't really see the difference, so I just broadened it out and bought any shell I liked the look of.
But just like the real thing, sometimes being mechanically minded isn't enough to keep you a lap ahead. You need to keep your developments close to your chest.
Espionage is very big in the model car world, and if you found something that you've done to your car that works really, really well, you've got to try and keep it under wraps, not tell too many people.
The spying, yeah, I mean, people watch. People come up, pick my car up when I don't want them to and start looking around. You just ask them to put it down.
Radio-controlled cars might be 1/10 of the size of the real thing, though the dedication of the drivers is undiminished. But aren't they taking these mini-motors a little too seriously?
They are only toys,
They're not toys.
but it's like anything. You take it to the absolute maximum.
If you saw the money that was spent on them, the time that's spent on them, the technology and research and development which goes into them.
They are toys, as we admit.
They're certainly not toys.
They're toys. We love going racing them. You know, we're just big kids, and it's great. You know, big motor racing cars are big toys. You know, they're all toys at the end of the day.
Speed is on the political agenda big time. Pathological speeders deserve everything they get. But how about the rest of us law-abiding motorists? How will we fare in a climate of zero tolerance and the most draconian approach to speed in 100 years?
But is the speed debate completely out of control? Is that chorus of worried voices becoming just too hysterical? Is the government right, as they never tire of telling us, that speed is the primary cause of road fatalities?
I think the speed debate has got out of hand. It's rather lost direction. Speed is undoubtedly a cause of accidents, but then so is bad driving, so are bad roads. There are lots of other causes. Speed is simply one.
And the latest voice to enter the debate is that of Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Paul Manning. Now, Paul Manning practices zero tolerance when it comes to speeding, but more than that, he's recently suggested that motorists should be fined and booked for doing just 1 mile an hour over the limit. What that means is if you're doing 21 in a 20, you'll be booked. 31 in a 30, 41 in a 40, 51 in a 50, 61 in a 60, etc., etc. So you could find yourself going down to the shops to get a paper, coming home and having lost your licence and your job, forcing me to pose the overwhelming and rather obvious question, is this a good idea?
The idea of 26 million motorists driving round, concentrating on their speedometer, scares me witless. Anything that takes a motorist's attention away from the road for however short a period of time has got to be wrong. And if we're all going to be driving around scared that we're doing 31 miles an hour, I can only see the accident rate going up, not down.
But do we really know how fast we're going? Can our speedos be accurate to within 1 mile an hour? We've taken 3 family cars and put their speedometers to the test.
This is a 10-year-old Sierra, well past its first flush of youth, but pretty representative of the average car on the road in the UK today. It's plugged up to a thing called a Datron Coravit, which, as far as the Home Office is concerned, is the benchmark for speed testing. This thing calibrates GATSOs, speed cameras, speed lasers, etc. for the police. We're going to compare what the real speed is against what the Sierra's speedo says. So here we go. Let's try 20 miles an hour. Let's just hold us steady for a moment, get an accurate reading. And according to the Datron, we are doing 22 miles an hour. So we would be in trouble. 30 miles an hour on the speedo equates to 31 on the Datron. Again, we'd be in trouble. Let's try 40. Now that's now reading under 39 miles an hour. 50, even more under, 47. 60 miles an hour, 57. So the higher we get up the speed curve, the more inaccurate this thing is. 70 miles an hour, 67 on the machine. So at low speeds, it reads over. At high speeds, it reads under. Empirical proof that the mechanical speedometer, as fitted to a million Sierras, is not state-of-the-art.
And exactly the same thing happened with the Metro and the Jeep. Both read over at between 20 and 30 and under at between 50 and 70. So anybody with a car with a mechanical speedometer is going to find it near impossible to drive within the law. And zero tolerance has already caused some rather red faces. Last week, Assistant Commissioner Manning's chauffeured car was unofficially clocked by a Mail on Sunday reporter using a Home Office-approved speed gun, doing 43 miles an hour in a 40 limit. Mr. Manning insisted his speedo was reading just 40 miles an hour. Top Gear's research proves he may well have been right, and that's our point. Britain's speedometers are anything but accurate.
Everything you read about the new Porsche Boxster S centres around one word: more. More power. More toys. More brakes. Well, bigger brakes, you know what I mean. And of course, it's more expensive. The S is £8,000 more than the standard Boxster, making it an eye-watering £42,000. That's more than BMW's newly fettled Z3M and all but the most expensive TVR. Stiff competition indeed. So, does the Boxster S really give you much, much more?
Not to look at, anyway. At a glance, £8,000 buys you twin exhausts, an extra air intake at the front, and an S model designation. That's badged to you and me. That said, it still looks great. It shares its nose with the bigger 911, but has a rear of its own. It's clean and simple, though some men don't like it because they say it's a bit girly.
But then, so am I, and I like it lots.
And the engine, oh, the engine. The 6-cylinder Boxer has been bored out by 700cc to make it 3.2 litres. Power is up by 50 bhp to 252. But best of all is the torque. The pulling power of the engine has been increased to 225 pounds per foot per hour.
Which means that while the engine will now rev higher, all the way to 7,200, you don't have to thrash it to get that extra grunt. It's there all the time, which means it's great for cruising and great for overtaking. In fact, it's just great.
And there's a new 6-speed gearbox,
which makes it a better car for long journeys, helped by a new, thicker hood which cuts down on wind noise. For a soft top, it's very quiet. And pushing the roof down is a Porsche-engineered pleasure. The interior is just as well designed and is beautifully finished. And again, much of it is shared with the bigger 911. The trio of clocks which dominate the dash have been given a lick of silver paint around the edges. Everything is stylishly detailed and feels really smooth to touch, especially the alloy trim on the gear lever and the handbrake. The new 3-spoke wheel is a perfect size and adjusts for reach, and the supportive leather seats adjust every which way.
For a 2-seater sports car, the S is pretty practical. There are lots of cubbies, and driver and passenger have a boot each, one at the front end and one at the back on top of the engine. And the Boxster S is even better to drive than its lovely little brother. Obviously, the increase in power means it's faster. 0 to 62 miles an hour takes 5.9 seconds, and the top speed is up to 161. But there's more to it than that.
The feel is fantastic. The steering is a little heavier and the ride a little firmer, but they combine to tell you everything you need to know about the car and the road, while shielding you from the worst bumps and jolts.
By the time you get to the limits of the car's grip, you're really flying. When you do, there's traction control to keep you out of the ditch. But even when it's switched off, it's safe, predictable and brilliant fun. There's a 10-month waiting list, but my name won't be on it. The Boxster might be good, but it's just too darned expensive.
The S is a hugely competent and complete sports car. It's safe, it's practical, it's beautifully designed, and it is enormous fun. But to me, that doesn't quite justify the high price, especially when you consider a 4.5-litre TVR Chimera is a whole £8,000 cheaper. Yes, the Boxster gives you more, but I'd like it for less.
Detroit, Motor City, Ford, Motor City, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler. Stuttgart, where they build Porsches and Mercedes. But we're in Newport Pagnell, spiritual home of Aston Martin.
Well, it's actually here. Aston's home since 1950, but it's less of a factory and more of an exclusive club with members like Rowan Atkinson, Elton John, Prince Charles, Prince Andrew, and of course the real royalty, good old Posh and Becks.
But there's one group of people who love Astons even more than their owners, and that's the people who build them. Aston Martin say they produce a car for life, and when they're brought back here for servicing, it's often by the very hands that brought them into the world.
Welcome home, kid.
And if you want your motor to have that little extra zing, then Work Service will be only too happy to do it for you.
Those customers who are looking for performance enhancement with bigger brakes, tuned suspension, engine performance enhancements and so on.
And you can do things like changing them from left-hand drive and right-hand drive and all those sort of things as well.
Typically an owner owns a car for a number of years in the UK, goes to live in Europe and says, well, it would be nice if I could have a left-hand drive version. We're very happy to make it a left-hand drive car for them, and if eventually they come back to the UK, we'll make it right-hand drive again.
So Kingsley, what if somebody comes up and asks you to do something that you would think was unspeakable to their car, like spray it pink?
We will consider it. I think you have to view every customer's request on its own merits.
Well, what about one of these? Do you think that would adorn any of your windscreens?
Possibly not.
The Work Service boys have notched up 528 years of experience, and they're as happy fitting a high-performance package to a new Vantage as restoring a classic.
My specialty is DB3, which you see it there.
Yeah.
Followed by 4, 5, 6s, V8s and the like, you know. It's just a matter of accumulation of years of experience and then you get that position.
Everything here is done by hand. Do you ever get fed up with that? I mean, you've been working on that DB3 for 18 months?
Well, on and off, yeah. There's no two things the same. You can get a dozen of these cars and one door would only fit one car. You can't swap anything over on them. They're built as they are for that particular car. It really has been a pleasure to work here all the years. I mean, some people laugh on it, but it has been. That's why I've been here 1960, some odd, you know, nearly 40 years, I suppose.
I was born.
Oh,
Aston takes great pride in its history. They've built 15,500 cars, and they know that 13,500 of them are still around, and they've got detailed records for every single one. But to keep all these cars going, you need the parts, and they've got them, 24,000 of them to be precise. So if you want a wheel hub, just be careful not to confuse your 1959 DB4 with your 1995 DB7.
And there's nothing Aston Martin like better than a challenge. So when this unique DB4 prototype came back, it took 3 years and over 150 grand to restore it to its 1957 glory, which is a lot less than Liz Taylor shelled out, let's face it.
These people are in love with the cars that you own. I mean, they built them and they feel attached to them, and they treat them with loving care, and they have as much interest in them as you do, if not more, and they cherish them, I suppose is the word, really.
But if this classic shape doesn't completely captivate you and you want something a little more modern, why not get Work Service to give your Aston a 90s makeover?
And if you're feeling a little cooped up in your coupe, then Aston Martin will be only too happy to turn it into an estate car. Although, frankly, if I had an Aston Martin, the Labradors stay at home.
Sitting, waiting, waiting, sitting. No one ever forgets the day of their driving test.
Good morning all. Mr. Needell.
Just another day at the driving test centre. With only 4 out of 10 candidates now getting through, the test is getting tougher. So here are some tips for success.
Come fully prepared, and we'd suggest you bring something a little more practical.
Where you live has a big effect on the pass rate. Right now you stand the highest chance of passing in Cambridge, where there's a success rate of 59%. But there are places where it's a lot harder than that.
We've come to Wanstead in northeast London because at the moment this is the hardest place to pass your test. Currently, just 26 out of each 100 candidates are successful. We've come here to find out why.
A tough patch. It's got a wide variation in roads, quite a complicated one-way system which can catch the unwary driver napping.
One of the biggest problems here is that you keep on going from a one-way street into a two-way street. It would be only too simple to go on the wrong side of the road right now.
Some of the roads are quite tricky, as you say. One-way road system and going into a two-way road system is quite difficult. And also Wanstead High Street is always busy. There's never a dull time.
And if you think that modern-day test routes don't go on major roads, I'm about to join the North Circular.
Passing a test in Wanstead should be no more difficult to passing a test at any driving test centre. The fact of the matter is that people arrive to test centres unprepared.
I was kind of in this sort of dream world of it's going to be like a computer game, and it's actually takes a lot of concentration.
But it's not just here that passing your test is getting tougher. The success rate has dropped all over Britain throughout the last 10 years, and even more so since the new test was introduced last May.
The problem of a low pass rate now on the new test is simply because lots of people are not getting the experience they need on the faster roads, on the dual carriageway. So obviously the faster roads need to be dealt with more by driving instructors to increase their pupils' standards.
Right, what is it now? Mirror signal manoeuvre. That's it, mirror signal manoeuvre.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, some people might say it's a circus act, but it's not just someone going through a routine like an animal. They are going through a routine to show an examiner that they have the rudimentary skills and beyond to be safe on the road.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So, be prepared. It may be a circus act, but you need to know the tricks. Drive on dual carriageways. Get experience of the toughest conditions. Practice your driving manoeuvres. Half fail the reverse round the corner. Get tuition from a qualified instructor. They know what the examiners are looking for. And make sure you know the roads in your test area back to front.
So there you have it. Practice, preparation and good tuition are what you need wherever you take your test. Some might say it's still not tough enough. But if you really want an easy life, there are states in America where all you have to do is drive round your local church.
So, anything you'd like to change?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. It's pretty perfect. Maybe just one thing. So, everybody happy?
No, this is very, very stupid. Childish. Imbecilic.
Oh, baby, you're the best.